Welcome to the Wake.Show. As everybody knows, a show needs an intro. This is that intro. I am Fisher, your host. Welcome to this Thursday. I can hear the storms rumbling. It's summer in Tampa Bay. Yeah, well, that's the random conversation starter today. And it's not just a random conversation starter because there's an article that prompted this, so it's not really random, and it's coming from Time Magazine. And the article is, here's more proof that your dog really does love you. And this is something that my wife and I love to go back and forth on. She swears that our dogs love us, that it's love. And I'm like, honey, first of all, we know that's not true about Roxy. She is, she said, oh, they love her. That's what it is. They love her, not me, and I'm trying to justify it otherwise. But we'll get to the details of the article coming up on the show today. But what do you think? Do you feel like, your pet loves you, your dog loves you, your cat loves you? I have a feeling this is going to turn into a discussion about, well, what is love? What do you mean by love then? What is love? Hi, Robert. Hi, good morning and welcome. Sharon, it's good to see you too. What's that? What's the laugh for there, Sharon? Is it the dog picture I've got in the background here? That's from the article. Joey's here too. Say hi, Joey. Joe. Hey, Joseph, say hi. Hi, buddy. Sorry. I forced him to do that. Sharon, my dogs love me because, in the end, I don't know if we've ever figured out love. I haven't looked it up in a long time. Back when you're a kid or, my younger days, there's that philosophical question. What is love? Is it it's a bonding thing. See, to me, so by the way, this is going to, I can't help it. You guys are gonna have to chime in because I'll start thinking like evolution, and I don't have any right or expertise to be thinking in those terms, but I'll be thinking like, okay, what do we really mean when we say love? This is a bonding mechanism. We're mammals. All right, so you see where I'm going, where my head is going to go with this. So you already know where I'm going to go with this, but chime in. But I think my dogs loves me. I in a sense, right? When you hear those stories about a dog that got left behind, a family moved or something like that, and then somehow it tracked down the family across the country, is that love, or is that just a wolf sense, a pack sense, and that animal was part of a pack? Certain things kicked in when that pack left the area, and so he went out and track down his pack. I think my dogs loves me. Here's the thing. Roxy McPoopenstein, and you can follow the Wake.Pups, my dogs on Instagram at the Wake.Pups. I used to be with you guys on this. Oh, hold on. We gotta share. I gotta share. Hold on a second. We gotta make sure that I'm doing this right. But here's the thing. She is very food driven, and if she loves us, if Roxy loves us, she has, you could steal our dog Roxy with a treat. With a piece of bacon, she will love you, I believe, as much as she loves Lauren and I. Now, Joey, on the other hand, he's a different personality. But we'll get back. Hold on a second here. So the Wake.Show, thank you so much for the engagements, the likes, and the shares. I got a couple things to get to today. Don't know how long of a show it'll be. Last night's, Wednesday nights are my late nights. And it was, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Last night was one of those nights. Wednesday night, downtown St. Pete, it can be hit or miss. Usually we have a pretty good crowd out at Park and Rec, but it's such a huge facility. Even a pretty good crowd, say 50, 60 people, it does not fill up the place. So, but we usually have a pretty good crowd out there. And last night, man, the people I want to say the kids were on fire because it did seem a little bit younger yesterday, last night. And a cool thing too, for those of you that go back with me to the alternative rock days at 97X, it was, I've been doing this Park and Rec karaoke thing for a year and a half. It was the most amount of songs by that in that format. There were people coming up doing Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, Hawthorne Heights, Good Charlotte. And it was so cool. It really was, because you know, those songs don't always get picked. And also the mix, the crowd, you guys would have been so happy for those of you that love to see, you know, love to see over a sea of people and see this amazing diversity, because it was a very mixed crowd too that were singing these songs, and it was so cool. All right, so anyway, let's do some sharing real quick before we go. Write a post. We are live. And but I do have a couple of interesting things to bring up today. I think, anyway. A couple of cool things. All right, there we go. So the random conversation that started this morning, it has to do with that. Also on the slate today is a really cool story coming out of Scientific American about a person can instantaneously blossom into a savant, and nobody knows why. So this is a really cool article about, that's documenting. We've heard those stories about somebody getting a concussion or getting hit over the head, and next thing you know, they know how to play the piano in something weird. Or they all of a sudden can pick up a foreign language like that. Well, I guess there's a phenomenon out there as well where, like, just spontaneously, you can become an instant genius. And one of the people that they highlight in this story is a guy who was just sitting there one day and was looking over at a piano as an adult. And he said all of a sudden, like this, there was this epiphany, this poof in his head. And he goes, everything just came into focus. Everything made sense. And I went over and just started playing the piano. Then when he went to look up music theory later on, like, okay, well, now that I'm into this, well, let me look up music theory. He's going through music theory and going, I already know this. I already know this. I already know this. How do I know this? And so this is an interesting article about that. Some people suddenly become accomplished artists or musicians with no previous interest or training. Is it possible innate genius lies dormant within everyone, including you and me? Oh, Maribel, you know what I missed you a couple of days ago, cousin? Is earlier in the week, I think it was Monday, or maybe it was late last week. It was National Cousin Day, and I didn't get you a card. I'm sorry, cousin. Nikki, good morning. I've missed a couple shows. Well, welcome back. Chris will be back tomorrow as well. And we also have a guest. Shane will be in, and he has a gaming podcast. I'm very curious. And here's how I came in contact with this guy, somebody that works here to Bake More Pies. His girlfriend works here. And so we were chatting it up, and I was going to try to connect with him last weekend or the weekend before when we had this huge gaming convention in town, and he was going there, but we just weren't able to do so. So I want to talk to him more about that, because part of what we're doing here, I know most of you watch this, or all of you that I'm interacting with here are watching through Facebook Live. But this is also streamed on, we'll have a good time to bring this up. This is also streamed on YouTube Live, Periscope/Twitter. The audio-only version is through Mixler. And now we're up on Twitch, which is mainly a gaming platform. Well, it's not a gaming platform. It's something like this, except that's where gamers go, and you watch them play their video games, and 1 million people just watch some dude playing his video game. I'm not hating. Just don't get it yet. But anyway, so I'll be looking forward. So I'm looking forward to having the conversation with him, so we'll be a little less ignorant about this kind of stuff. Oh, okay, all right. So this is how my wife has explained the love. She says Roxy does love us. She just loves food more. Okay, all right, fair enough. My cats love me, says Nikki. I don't know why that laugh posted. My one dog, Jade, will not allow a stranger to come near me, and she wants to be near me always. That's not love. That's insecurity. Well, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Maybe that is love. True love is she would let you go and know that you would come back to her. That's true love. She sounds like a very possessive, controlling dog. So you might want to keep her in check. Sounds like Roxy and I have lots in common. I too can be stolen with a treat. Well done, Steve. Let me pull out a ha 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 on that one. Elliot, anyone that has seen the movie Phenomenon knows that guy has a brain tumor. I never. That was. Oh no, I'm thinking of Powder. Oh, Phenomenon. That was what's it? John Travolta. Wahoo! All right, so let's get to the article then. Let's get to the article and see what proof they have that our animals, that our dogs, actually love us. and this is coming from Time. Most dog owners would do just about anything for their pups, a new study shows. All right. We know that. We know that. But a new study says the feeling may be mutual. Plenty of research has shown that dogs respond to signs of their owner's distress, such as crying, but it hasn't been clear to what extent pups will try to make their owners feel better. A paper just published, however, suggests that dogs will actually take an action trying to alleviate that distress. Okay, is that love? The results suggest that your pooch may empathize with and care for you even more that you know. And in the end, because this, like I said, this can devolve, or I don't know, evolve. Maybe it is a good discussion. What, in the end, what is love? But yeah, so if love is about, you have to have the empathy component. You must be able to feel the other person's distressed, their ups and their downs. Well, then it looks like dogs can definitely do. We know that we can. Okay. So back in the day, all I did when I was doing morning radio, when I wasn't on the air, I was reading something, watching something, or listening to something. And it was always information-based, news-based, information-based. I don't remember where I was going with this now. So let's just move on. Let's just move on. So, yeah. I remember now. And when I first got Roxy, I had to be careful when I was watching cable news, and I never even realized it. I would get worked up, even by myself in my house. I'd get worked up at the television, and sometimes, cuss at it or whatever. Well, I'd notice her body language change before I even got to the point where I'm getting ready to yell at the television. Like, she somehow sensed me getting worked up, and next thing you know, I'd look over and she'd be cowered in some corner, and I'm going, what are you doing? I wasn't pointing any of that towards you, but she sensed something and she didn't want to be around it. So that doesn't surprise me at all. So the researchers ran an experiment with 34 dog owner pairs from the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. The dogs were varied breeds and ranged from 1.5 to 12 years old. Each of the owners sat in a small room, closed off from his dog, his or her dog by a door. But do you think that if your dog or cat were to go live with another pack, another house, what's a group of cats called? A herd? Would they assimilate and love them? That new pack, love that new pack. After a certain amount of time, I don't know, 6 months or 2 years. And whereas if you came back into their world at that point, they wouldn't automatically just go, oh, look, screw you guys. That's the person I really love, and head back. Or there'd be some kind of back and forth, like would their brain do the calculations? Who has treated me better? Who has super served my needs better, and pick that one? I'd like to think, well, I've seen that happen before, where the animal definitely recognizes the person, but I don't know about that whole that love thing, that bonding thing. One of the greatest videos of all time is that the lion one, going back to the 70s. Remember that, where those guys raised the lion in London or something like that in a dorm room or something ridiculous, and they eventually were forced to get rid of it, took it out, to the wild, let him go. And then years later, went out looking for him. And next thing you know, the lion comes chasing after him and jumps up and hugs him. That's amazing to me. That is just absolutely amazing. All right. Yep, John Travolta. Watch it, Mr. Don't say anything mean about my children. My dogs will go crazy if I cry. I watched Dancing with Wolves and started to cry. They jump on me and lick me. Yeah, that's so awesome. A group of cats is called a bunch of assholes. Thank you, Elliot. They couldn't live without me. No, cat pack is a clouder. Okay. I don't know if I spelled that right or not. And Born Free. Oh, Born Free. Yeah, that's the name of the video if you want to search that, Born Free. All right, so back to this. So here's the test. The door, which had a window that allowed dogs to see their owners, was fastened to its frame by magnets so dogs of any side could push it open. To test how the dogs would respond to suffering, half the owners were instructed to say the word help in a distressed tone of a voice every 15 seconds, making crying noises in between. The other half said help in an emotionless tone and hummed Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star between words. The researchers then observed how many dogs made an attempt to open the door to be with their owner. All right, well, let's find out more. I want to know what happened next. What's going on here, Internet? Oh, well. That's what you get for relying on the Internet. Here we go. Roughly half the dogs ended up opening the door, but there was no significant difference between the dogs who heard their owners crying versus humming. So does that mean dogs have no empathy? Not necessarily. While about the same number of dogs in each group opened the door, dogs responding to owners' distress did so much faster, after an average of 23 seconds compared to almost 96 seconds in the humming group. Among dogs who did open the door, those who scored highly on separate owner bond test, which involved measuring how much a pet gazed at its person during a frustrating situation, tend to open the door quickly, signifying that the dogs who feel attached to their owners want to help. Quote, some of this was what the dogs want to be with their dogs want to be with their people, but they want to be with their people even quicker if the person is crying. The findings also suggest some solace for people whose dogs did not open the door. The dogs in the crying group showed significantly more signs of distress, including pacing, panting, and whining, than the pooches in the control group, suggesting that they have been too anxious or upset to complete the task. Okay, so that's kind of interesting that you had a group of dogs that got distressed and opened the door to be with their owner, but you also, a lot of the ones that did not open the door, you could still tell that they were distressed. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to get to their owner. So is this all proven love? Is this all proving love by our pets? Listen, I guess this is one of those things you can talk about all day, but I think in a sense, yes, they love us. But going down that path, going down that rabbit hole, I would have to go, okay, then let's talk about what love really is. And I think in this, this wouldn't be some mystical, magical thing. We're talking about just using love to describe characteristics of certain kind of bonding within organisms, species. Studies show cats separated from their owners after so many years can go through a depression and stop eating. Elliot, dog Hachiko is an interesting case as far as this goes. A dog Hachiko is an interesting case as far as this goes. All right, so there we go. We got that first one out of the way there. I wasn't really out of the way. It's just, it's awesome. In the end, dogs are awesome, and they continue to amaze the crap out of me. For those of you that are a little bit more on the religious side, do dogs have souls? For me, if we go down that path, and if anything has because if anything has a soul, then everything has a soul. We're all part of like a collective soul, whatever, the Holy Spirit / God / universe / the source / the original source / all that stuff. All right. Next up, are you a genius in waiting? Are you a genius that is merely waiting to be provoked, to hatch? Instantly blossom, a person can instantly, spontaneously burst into a savant. Let's get to some of these details. Savant syndrome comes in different forms. In congenital savant syndrome, the extraordinary savant ability surfaces in early childhood. In acquired savant syndrome, astonishing new abilities, typically in music, art, or mathematics, appear unexpectedly in ordinary persons after a head injury, a stroke, or other central nervous system incident where no such abilities or interests were present pre-incident. But there's something, which is, even there, without the spontaneous one, that is incredible when you hear those stories about how somebody gets knocked on the head and all of a sudden they're speaking a different language or understanding concepts. What the F does that say about our brains and how we're made up? Sorry for getting worked up and dropping the what the F. Steve, if all dogs go to heaven, Mike Vick may be nervous if he makes the cut. All dogs go to heaven, and when I die, I will see all of my dogs. Good for you, Sharon. I believe animals have souls. All right. In a sense, so do I. But in sudden savant syndrome, an ordinary person with no such prior interest or ability and no precipitating injury, or other CNS, central nervous system incident, has been unanticipated, spontaneous, epiphany-like moment where the rules and intricacies of music, art, or mathematics, for example, are experienced and revealed, producing almost instantaneous giftedness and ability in the affected area of skill sets. Because there is no underlying disability such as that which occurs in congenital or acquired savant syndromes, technically sudden savant syndrome would be better termed sudden genius. I've got sudden genius syndrome. Well, I'll tell you, after a couple of Jamesons, I have sudden genius syndrome every single time. A 28-year-old gentleman from Israel, K.A., sent his description of his epiphany moment. He was in a mall where there was a piano. Whereas he could play simple songs from rote memory before, suddenly at age 28, after I can best describe as just a getting it moment, it all seemed so simple. I suddenly was playing like a well-educated pianist. His friends were astonished as he played and suddenly understood music in an entirely intricate way. Quote, I suddenly realized what the major scale and minor scale were, what their chords were, and where to put my fingers in order to play certain parts of the scale. I was instantly able to recognize harmonies of the scales in the songs I knew, as well as the ability to play melody by interval recognition. He began to search the internet for information on music theory, and to his amazement, most of what they had to teach I already knew, which baffled me as how could I know something I never studied? Now, this guy does have a high IQ. His name is Israel. Is that what it is? Oh, no, he's from Israel. K.A. has a high IQ, is now an attorney, and has no history of any developmental disorders. He makes part of his living from doing musical performances. He described his musical epiphany in much more detail in a posting in the article section of savantsyndrome.com. Another one. This 43-year-old woman woke up one night in December of 2016 with what she called the urgent need to draw a multitude of triangles, which quickly evolved into a web of complex abstract designs. I stayed up into the morning with a compulsive need to draw, which continued over the next 3 days at an intense level. She had no prior interest in or training in art. By the third day, she was working on a piece that became known as The Mayan, which took her 2 weeks to complete. 3 months later, she had created 15 pieces whose styles were reminiscent of artists including Frida Kahlo and Picasso. She presently spends about 8 hours a day on her craft in addition to her work as a real estate agent. Incorporated into most of her pieces of art is a Mandalic style of which she was totally unaware prior to her sudden art ability. That is just incredible. I have no explanations whatsoever, except for this just is one of those things that excite me, that there's more to the universe than we think. There's more to the way that we connect with things, the way that our brain works, the way that consciousness works. Because I'm also a believer in that. Before I read these stories, I had an epiphany. I thought that that knowledge, stuff like this, can spontaneously happen in the brain. And I don't remember where I was at that point when I was thinking this. And then I did some research on it and found out that that was not a new idea, and that it goes back hundreds of years, and it's called something, and I don't remember what it is now. Here, I'll give you a little an anecdote. Did you guys ever see what was the astrophysicist Carl Sagan? What was the television show he was famous for back in the 70s? I think it got into the 80s. And then Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson picked it up a couple years ago. Seth MacFarlane was the executive producer of it. They redid their version. All right, well, we'll get to that. Elliot, I think the strangest thing about this is that it seems like music theory might be something inherent, like physics. If you can suddenly understand it completely, you wouldn't suddenly know everything about film or something like that. I don't think, like film. So yeah, because you're right, music theory and math are connected, right? So if all of a sudden you can get certain mathematical things that, I could see how you could get certain musical things, because that's math. But you're right, that wouldn't necessarily, well, I don't know, because there's some fundamental underlying things to everything, right? So if you can find some that string that connects, what am I trying to say? That common thread even in film or writing. And all of a sudden you have that epiphany, like, oh my gosh, this is so simple now. I see how they write in, A, B, C, and how it's simply this, 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 and you just fill in these blanks over here. Oh my gosh, I get it. I see it. So I don't know. Maybe that can work too. What the hell was the name of that show? Cosmos. Thank you, Elliot. So when Cosmos came back with Seth MacFarlane as the executive producer, and they really did it up, did it right, I turned off the first episode. I turned off after the first episode. And this is the kind of show that I'd been waiting for months when they announced it, and I couldn't wait to DVR it. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I have a lot of respect for, an astrophysicist, was talking about a monk. Because, going back, hundreds of years, a lot of times the physicists, the scientists of the time were also the theologians of the time as well. A lot of the people that were gazing into the stars and figuring the heavens out were monks that are sitting there just doing their thing and looking up in the stars, right? And contemplating and thinking. So anyway, he describes a monk going back like 400 years who was trying to describe the universe back then. And he described the universe like you can't ever get to the end of the universe. It's like if you got to the end of the universe and pulled, I think was his metaphor, and shot an arrow. You got to the edge of the universe and shot an arrow. That arrow wouldn't just stop there at the edge of the universe and stop. It would keep going. And so somehow he visualized this and how the universe, something. But anyway, what Neil deGrasse Tyson did in that moment, he goes, he got lucky. He said, well, he got lucky. He was right, but he got lucky. And I was so effing mad at that moment because to me and remember, I am a college dropout. So my I'll passionately defend my ignorance, passionately share my ignorance with you. But for the way that I see things, this is how I don't know how epiphanies work, but there's something to them, and I know that you can have an epiphany and be wrong about it. So he's basically saying that this guy had an epiphany and he just happened to be right about it. I like to think that the universe works a little bit differently and that he was searching for the answers. I mean, for those of you that are raised in the same religion I was raised in, right, asking you shall receive. So this guy was doing his thing and he saw it. And the best way he could describe to everybody else how he saw the universe was that metaphor. And then 400 years later, you have an astrophysicist going, he was right, but he got lucky. You don't know that. You don't know that yet, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You don't know that. You can only describe to me 5% of the universe, barely 5% of the universe. Everything else you call dark. 95% of the universe you call, well, it looks like some of this over here looks like it's doing energy type stuff. Over here it's doing matter type stuff, but we can't, it's not adding up. We don't know what that is. We can't see the matter that's allegedly out there, and we can't detect the well, I guess we're getting closer. I guess we've figured out some things there, but for the most part, you still don't know what it is. And so, until you can describe to me more than just 5% of the entire universe, then please, man, have an open mind, scientist. And maybe that guy, that monk 500 years ago, connected with the universe the way that a lot of people feel like you can connect to the universe and all of a sudden become a spontaneous genius. All of a sudden, mathematics, you get. Music, you get. The fundamental forces of nature, you get. If you go back and read the stuff on Einstein, what he was able to visualize is a lot of scientists figured out their theories and solved their problems getting into math and using the process. Now, Einstein did that some as well, but how he figured out everything he figured out was like that monk. He'd go and he'd sit and he'd close his eyes and he would do thought experiments. And he would just keep running these simulations, and to come to find out years later, once he died and somebody preserved his brain and they did a cross-section of his brain, we found out that he actually had an abnormally large, I'm pretty sure I missed a letter there, parietal, and I believe that's the part of the brain that helps you visualize things, and whatever. So his was superhuman, but he'd sit there and he'd visualize the universe and run these simulations, run these experiments through his head, and then he'd have these epiphanies. Then he'd go try to figure out the math to show everybody what he was doing. Now, I'm sure that wasn't true and everything. I'm sure there was some times that he started with the math and backed into something or whatever. But I just think there might be more to it. And it took me like a year to go back and finish the Cosmos series because of that. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, so I hope you all that'd been a good question. If you were to become a spontaneous genius, all of a sudden an instant genius in something, what would you like it to be? Or all of a sudden you woke up one day or you're looking at something, you went, I get it. And even though you were never mechanically inclined, all of a sudden you looked at an engine and go, I can fix this. And you were an ace mechanic like that without ever having to take a class. Music would be cool, especially for somebody who's been on the periphery of music all of my career, and as a radio DJ who has zero musical talent whatsoever, except of course when I'm singing Whitney Houston a cappella. I will always love you. See, outside of that, I don't have much talent. No. If I could wake up one day and have that genius moment that something clicks and I got it, I think it would be something in the fundamental laws of physics. Like I would wake up one day and calculus would just all of a sudden make sense. Because I never got that far in math. Like all of a sudden, all these mathematical things would pop in, and the next thing you know, I'm going, oh my gosh, I get it. I understand the fundamental laws of the universe. I will be able to unify all the four fundamental forces and complete Einstein's work. Well, that'd be fun. Very crazy to think what could be possible if we were able to figure out how to use all of our brain. We only use a small percentage. Steve Corbin, from what I understand, that is an old urban legend. That is a myth that we only use 10% of our brain and the 80% of our brain lies dormant. From what I understand, we use all of our brain and it is working all the time, but not everything is firing all the time. Only things. So if you're resting, only those things that need to keep your heart rate going, your heart beating and your breathing and cooling your body, or you're keeping the proper temperature or whatever. Is all it's going to do. And then I'm sure there's other times you're looking at your brain and it's all lit up. Usually when you're on crystal meth, which come to find out is what Demi Lovato overdosed on. Initial reports were heroin. We know she had a history with opiates, but it looks like it was crystal meth. Which brings us to this story. Good Samaritan rescues a shirtless toddler wandering near Brevard County highway. I'm bringing this up because I have a story to tell. At first, when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's whatever. But I would wait a second. The same thing happened to me years ago, and it's a good story. A Good Samaritan rescues a shirtless toddler. Saved the life. So I guess this is probably the mom that let the toddler get away. But a Good Samaritan may have saved the life of a toddler who was wandering near a busy highway in Brevard County. Authorities say this is the second time the Titusville 3-year-old was found wandering. Police say said the Good Samaritan grabbed the little boy just as he was about to run into traffic, which is exactly what happened in my story, too, that I will get here momentarily. This little kid, I don't know ages, but still in diapers, and that was it, just a diaper. I'm guessing it could walk, so I'm guessing somewhere in the 18-month range or something like that. But standing on the side of the road on 4th Street. Is that Sonny's Barbecue still there? That Sonny's Pit Barbecue still there? It was right across the street from that on 4th Street. And we'll come back. Let me get to these details, and I'm going to come back to that story. Police said the Good Samaritan, Brittany Jones, 20, told authorities she was staying with a friend and did not notice when her toddler wandered away. Has that ever happened to you, moms, dads? I know I was notorious for wandering away. See, I don't judge these, by the way. I don't judge. Now, when it's the second time the cops are called, look into it, make sure the house is looking. But I'm not automatically judging just because a kid wandered away. As a kid who was a ninja himself as a child, it was brought home by neighbors on multiple occasions. What, you're saying that still my parents were at fault and I should look at this differently? No. Like that. Things happen so quickly. Kids get away like that. No, you should be all over them. No, you shouldn't. You should not be a helicopter parent. You know, you got to raise. Are you raising adults? Are you raising humans? Or are you trying to raise babies? You're trying to raise children. Because let me tell you, it seems like I've been seeing a lot of the latter over the last 25 years. I'm sorry. That seems pointed. It shouldn't be, because I also believe that is driven by something else and not just by horrible humans being bad parents. I think it has to do with, just the way things happen. We got to a point, especially here in the West in America, that it just wasn't as hard as the generation before. And we had more opportunity to protect. And so we did. And so I think the downside to that is that there's a generation of humans that got to adulthood and were not adults or could not take care of themselves. Some parents, I think it's a psychological disorder for some. The way that it's not on purpose. It's not on purpose. That's not fair. It seems like it sometimes because of how dependent some parents have made their children on them. But I'm sure there are some nefarious, those like the one that would a scenario that pops in my head where I could see it being on purpose would be one of those families that have a lot of money, maybe come from generations of that, and they do a very good job of controlling everybody else in the family because they're the ones with the money. But I know that stuff exists, but I think because that's when you start getting, in my mind, you're starting to get into the Machiavellian, almost psychopathic people that are out there. And yes, we know they're out there, but they're only like 1%. And it's not everybody that's powerful that has those kind of views. All right. Become a genius in understanding women. Holy crap. That'll make physics look easy. Steve, that is a great line. Thank you. We had a house full of company and Elliot walked out when he was 2. Scariest day ever. We lived in a neighborhood, so there wasn't any traffic. A neighbor brought him back. And I don't judge you for it. But look, Sharon, but what would have happened, if a cop comes by and they pick up the kid, next thing you know, you're in the newspaper too, and people are judging you. So I'm not necessarily going to judge this woman, but I will tell you the story about the time that this happened to me. So This goes back to the early 2000s, and I was dating a woman at the time, and we were going to Sonny's Pit Barbecue. So obviously, I was really treating her well. And was that WTF for your mom, Sharon or Elliot? And we're driving south on 4th Street, and all of a sudden, the girl I'm with, she yells, "Holy shit! There's a baby!" And I look over on the side of the road, and time stops because you see the baby like up on next to the road, like one step. It's on 4th Street, and cars are just going zoom, 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 zoom. And so I pull over to the median. She darts out the car, grabs the baby, and next thing you know, she's standing in the median of 4th Street there. I pull into the off street to come back out to see what I can do. Well, by the time I turn around and get back out, she's just standing there, and she was wearing a halter top or what do they call those things? Tube top, halter top. I don't know, whatever. One of those. And she was freaking out, just like sitting there with this baby. Well, the baby was kind of doing this and had pushed down her shirt. So she's sitting there with one boob hanging out on 4th Street and a baby in her arms and nothing but a diaper that's crying. So, we gather our composure, and we're sitting there at Sonny's Barbecue. We ask the people if we can call the cops. Use their phone to dial 911. I guess I didn't have a cell phone at the time. I don't know. So that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we asked to use their phone. We're standing out front of Sonny's now, waiting for the cops to come. And this little baby's just crying and screaming. And they would look at him. Everybody, not everybody, a lot of the people inside Sonny's are looking at us. So a woman walks out, and she goes, "Oh, is he teething?" I go, "I don't know. He's not ours. We just found him in the street." And this woman, she was like if you were to cast this particular woman in a television show, she would be playing that the super nice next door neighbor that's buying you, that's making you pies and because she just had that demeanor of, oh, da 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 da. And I go, well, we don't know. We just found him in the street. And her demeanor she goes, "What the fuck?" and drops an F-bomb. She just, "What the We're like, we just called the cops. We have no idea. So the cops finally show up, and we're given the details of what just happened. And all of a sudden, you're looking down the street across 4th Street. You see a woman come out of the house, look down towards us, like, holy crap, there he is, and starts coming our way. One of the funny things, too, because we're sitting out in front of a Sonny's Pit barbecue, all these people looking at us while we have this crying baby. Also, we're 2 white people, and the baby is not white. It's a little black baby. So everybody's watching us, and comes out. We're not even sure who this baby is. So then the cops get there. We give them over, and this woman comes. She goes, "Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this." Da da da. Grabs her little baby. Right, she's in tears, and turns and starts to walk back home. And the officer goes, "Ma'am, I've got a few questions for you first." And that's it. I don't know if the woman ended up getting arrested or what transpired after that, because we asked, "Do you need us for anything?" They said, "No, you're good." We took off, and that was it. But that's so. So if you guys ever, if you can think back 15 years and you were driving down 4th Street and you ever saw a little white girl with a boob hanging out with a little African-American baby in her arms, that was the story. That's the story behind how that happened, if you happen to witness that at that time. All right. Good story, Fish. Good story. Well, thank you guys. Let's see. Went a little bit long. I don't know. We're only 42 minutes in. I guess it's going to be nice and short today. Thank you so much for tuning into the Wake.Show. Chris McCarty will be back yesterday. We have a guest in. We'll be talking gaming and podcasts tomorrow as well. Drew, it's good to see your name pop up right as I'm wrapping things up today. I don't have another 18 minutes in me. Well, I can babble. I can ramble for 18 minutes if you really, force me to do so. But why? All right, good luck on becoming a spontaneous genius before the next time that I talk to you. Have a great day. Thank you for your support. And we'll see you tomorrow. The Shame Game on Friday. Don't forget, Chris McCarty will be here. We'll be playing some music and the Shame Game tomorrow on the Wake.Show.